So I wanted to talk about my video that I made yesterday about loving yourself and ways to go about doing that. And it's all you have to keep thinking about it in the reference frame of how to invest in yourself, right? And human nature, we're designed to just think about the now, right? Because we exist in the now. But the thing is, we don't appreciate that. It's sort of counterintuitive, but by understanding that you exist in the now is to and to properly appreciate that is to understand that you have to plan for the now that is all of the future. Let me explain. Like a wise man once said, there is no future because it hasn't happened yet. There's no past because it already passed. There's only now. So my takeaway for that is, like, for example, like gifts, like giving someone a thing as opposed to an experience, right? It's more meaningful when they have an experience and they like the experience better, typically, or should, I would argue, because that's the emotion, right? The good feelings, right? And you have to frame all of these investments of like what is going to continue making more of that good experience over time, right? You have to prep yourself to continuously exist in this world that you shape for yourself, or we shape with each other together, to build these good experiences. Okay, so now practically, I think the best way to love yourself is sort of like this as well, is to learn how to love yourself. And with all learning, as I mentioned in the video, you have to fall a bunch. So I would task you now, if you had the question of like, how do I love myself better, right? I would go out and just fail at things. Try things, fail, and just mark that as a data point, right? By knowing, if you don't know how to know what to do, what you like, what you love, how to love yourself, find out what you don't want to do to love yourself. That doesn't work for loving yourself and you appreciate, and you just don't like. Because human beings were better at finding out things that are wrong and then deducing and figuring out something right from that. It's just a little tricky because we're pretty good at jumping to assumptions because we need to make assumptions, especially when there's like a tiger in the woods or something, which is the way we evolved, right? Or a lion or whatever. But find out, find those data points that exist in the world for you, and then work from there. Because the most important thing is just to do it. You have to start. Like, think about what's conducive. Not doing anything is definitely not conducive to getting better. So start with something. Start with the not things. It's like what I say with like a new painting or a drawing on a blank piece of paper, right? The blank sheet problem. And everyone's like, "Oh, I don't know how to start." It's not about knowing how to start, because you're good at knowing what's wrong, knowing how to fix it. That's why people have trouble starting things. They're like, "Oh, this thing that I did isn't good compared to what I want it to be." Good. Now you have a trajectory. You started down here, and then you go up there, and you get better. Just keep doing that. It's not about the now. It's not about this week. It's not about this month. It's not about this year. It's about 30 years down, having done something and worked on something for 30 years. And then you'll be pretty good. I like to think of two things, right? I like to think of a year ago, right? If I had a shitty year a year ago, and I was trying to think about exactly this day, this month, a year ago, how bad that day was. And maybe I'm lucky to have a bad memory in this case, but I just don't remember if it sucked. It could have been terrible. But it doesn't matter because it's in the past. I don't care. And then I also think about something else. The second thing is that hobby Like for me, piano, that was one that I wish I never gave up on. And I would always think like, ah, if I had just if I had just not quit piano, I'd be so good right now, right? But then you have to frame that in a not negative way, in a constructive way. Think about that as in 10 years from now, looking today from 10 years from now. And you can easily say, like, ah, I wish I just started playing piano then, and it ought to be so much better. And you can. That's by doing it now. Put in the effort now, and then 10 years from now, that present you, which is the future you now, will thank you. This is what I'm trying to get at whenever I say a fully realized human, a human being that is fully realized, is a fourth dimensional person. Fourth dimension as in like really focusing on the time thing, but like true mastery of the time, right? And like knowing you as an entity and what you're going to be like, what you're going through, your your history and your future and your present. Realize who that ideal person would be on that timeline and work to get to there. That's where loving yourself, I think, is, and love in general, is helpful. Appreciate the whole thing. It's a journey.